Ladina the Flesh Slayer, free chapter. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Flesh Slaughterer, Ladina, free chapter, Flesh Slaughterer, level 13, potential, divine life, immune to all coercion, mental control, poison, curse. Divinity, 3 points, all attributes increased by 300%, divine talent, immortality, divinity is indestructible and the body is immortal. After death, 1 point of divinity can be consumed to revive in full state, and all attributes will be increased by 50% within 3 hours after resurrection. Divinity is restored by 1 point every day. Skill, suture body, special, the body is sutured by flesh and blood, there is no fatal weakness, and any injury will not be fatal. Devouring growth, special, you can devour flesh and blood to continuously strengthen your body, and you can obtain a passive skill every time you strengthen it to a certain limit. The current strengthening level is elementary. Passive skill, steel skeleton, the body bones are harder than steel. Slaughter, special, each time you slaughter a life, you can embed its soul into your flesh and blood, so that your attack will cause soul damage. You can release the soul at once, forming a ghost frenzy to cause huge damage to nearby enemies. Madness aura, special, with itself as the center, it emits a madness aura in a radius of 100 meters. Those who are shrouded will fall into madness and their sanity will decrease by 70%. Flesh axe, special, you can use flesh and blood to condense a weapon that fits you. The flesh axe. The flesh axe has the execution feature. If the level is 1 level lower than itself, there is a 10% chance to execute the enemy directly. If it is 2 levels lower than itself, there is a 20% chance. If it is 3 levels lower than itself, there is a 35% chance to execute the enemy directly. Void channel, 4 stars, the special power obtained by devouring the eyeball of a demigod can open a void channel, allowing you to instantly shuttle through the void and reach the target. Evaluation, a divine life born in flesh and blood and madness. Chapter 90, the significance of a milestone, a new page. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After reading the attributes of the Flesh Slaughterer, Lear's heart trembled. Level 13, divine life. So terrifying, so terrifying. The most perverted thing is its talent, immortality, which can consume the full state of divinity to revive, and 3 points of divinity can revive the Flesh Slaughterer 3 times. After each resurrection, all attributes can be increased by an additional 50%. What is this concept? The enemy finally killed it, and it came back to life in the blink of an eye and became stronger. He can already imagine the horrified expression of future enemies when facing the Flesh Slaughterer. It is worthy of being a divine life. In addition to the talent, its 6 skills are also more brutal than each other. 5 are special skills attached to it, and the only 4-star skill among them is the Void Channel. It is obtained by devouring the eyes of the Lord of Fowl and Flies. It can only be described as explosive, although the opponent's combat power has not been tested yet. Based on this skill, it is already possible to imagine the horror of this divine life. There is one more trump card in hand. In a good mood. Ladina, you will follow me in the future. I will obey your orders, my lord. A low and empty voice sounded, and this 3-meter-tall terrifying life slowly stood up and came to Lear's side, like a statue, silently guarding. The Flesh Slaughterer and hags will become 2 unstoppable butcher knives in his hands. Comfortable, Lear was in a good mood and returned to the tent with brisk steps. The night was getting darker and the air was quiet. After a simple wash, he fell asleep. The Flesh Slaughterer stood outside the tent, and the headless appearance made the patrolling wetland lizardmen feel a little terrified. The pressure emitted by the other party made them feel like they were being stared at by a dragon, and they dared not approach. The next morning, Lear was awakened by a heated discussion outside. After a simple wash, he went out and saw Bane walking in excitedly, but just as he approached the tent, his steps stopped abruptly. He swallowed his saliva, and subconsciously glanced at the Flesh Slaughterer at the door. This terrible, headless, stitched monster looked too horrible. There was a kind of madness that was almost tyrannical, as if it would choose someone to devour in the next second. He stomped his feet in embarrassment. Good day, Sir. Lear followed his gaze and looked at the sculpture-like Flesh Slaughterer, and felt a little funny. Don't be afraid of Ladina, he is also the guardian of the city of Wei Lu. He looked around curiously. What happened? Why is it so noisy? Bane immediately became energetic when he talked about this. Sir, the city hall has been built. Lear's eyes lit up. After working for so long, it was finally built. Let's go and take a look. He strode forward, the flesh slaughterer followed a few steps behind, and Bane hurried to catch up. Coming to the central area, the full view of the first building of the City of Wisdom is presented in front of us without reservation. The irregular circular municipal hall with a diameter of more than 200 meters stands on the earth. It is completely woven by starry vines, and the stars flow on the vines, giving people a beautiful feeling. After nightfall, its starry appearance can make the building look even more beautiful. Its height reaches an amazing 20 meters, and the vines are intertwined and woven, densely packed, and can easily block wind and rain. There are also many green and narrow leaves growing on the vines, making this building full of vitality. The overall feeling is more like a living building built by elves in the legend. Municipal Hall, level 1 star, features. Entering the building, the energy recovery speed increases by 20%, and the physical recovery speed increases by 30%. If the Vine Fairy is integrated into it, the Municipal Hall can be activated, making it a defensive building that can mobilize vines to attack the enemy. Evaluation: the building built by the Vine Fairies, the unique life in the swamp, has a very strange power. This attribute is very good. It actually comes with 2 restorative attributes. Lear's eyes lit up. The Vine Fairies flying outside saw him coming and immediately flapped their wings and swarmed over. They surrounded him and flew back and forth, or stayed on his shoulders, rubbing his face with intimacy. Bane's eyes were full of envy. Only Lear in the entire territory could enjoy the intimacy of these fairies. Father God, we have built the city hall. Lear smiled happily. Thank you for your hard work, you did a great job. He praised these little guys without hesitation. Let these little cuties smile and become more cheerful. For more than half a month, the Vine Fairies have been working day and night. Without their busyness, it would not be so fast. While thinking, I suddenly realized with surprise that the breath of these little guys was stronger than before. Curiously, he opened the attribute panel and was surprised to find that the level of the Vine Fairy had been upgraded from level 5 to level 8. He looked at their talent again, the gift of vines. They could draw strength from the vines and upgrade their levels. To build such a huge building, countless vines were needed. As the number of vines increased, these lives were naturally upgraded. It was a win-win situation. Lear was in a better mood. With an impatient mood, I walked into the city hall with the Vine Fairy. The front of the city hall faces south and its back is to the north. Standing right in front and looking up, the door is more than 10 meters high, with an arched door opening and 2 vine-woven doors that open left and right and fit on the wall. It can be closed at any time if necessary. He strode through the doorway and saw that the walls were about 3 meters in diameter and were woven with vines. Go inside the building. Ahead is the main hall, about 100 meters in diameter, spacious, empty, and solemn. The dome of the sky is like a canopy, with large vines woven into a network, filled with light and dots of stars. It's like being in a void. There are thick vine roots under your feet, which bounce back slightly when you step on them, and the touch is completely different from the ground. Passing through the empty hall, there is a ceiling-topping vine wall at the rear, and there are 10 small 5-meter-high door openings to enter the rear area. Each doorway is connected to a corridor, and there are houses not far apart. There was no furniture inside, so it was empty. Between the corridors, there are stairs that spiral upward. It is 5 stories high. Father God, there are 30 rooms on each floor here. The top floor is your exclusive area. The Vine Fairy who was responsible for the introduction was full of pride. Try the stairs here. Lear followed the other party's gesture and looked around, and was a little surprised to find that in addition to the stairs for walking, there was additional space here, such as a compartment without an elevator. In the midst of doubts, the Vine Fairy urged him to go up. After Lear stood up, the little guy chirped again. Father God, which floor do you want to go to? Lear laughed. 5th floor bar. Okay, let's go to the 5th floor. The Vine Fairy shouted crisply. Lear felt a sudden tremor under his feet, and a large vine rose up from the open doorway in front of him, sealing the room. Then there was a strong lifting sensation that can only be experienced when taking an elevator. He was rising rapidly. Lear looked up curiously, and saw that the vines at the top seemed to be pulled by a giant hand and kept shortening upwards. Is this a fantasy version of an elevator? His expression became quite subtle. Could he still do this? For a moment, my feet trembled slightly, and I felt that I had reached the top, but it wasn't over yet. After a slight pause, the room began to move laterally, and then slowly stopped after turning a few turns within the vine walls. The vines in front retracted up and down, revealing the exit. Father God, your room is here. Lear stepped out in surprise. Immediately he saw a wide space appearing in front of him, and the huge dome was not far away. The entire 5th floor is your room. And only with your order can outsiders enter. The Vine Fairy was very proud. Lear turned his head and looked at the fantasy version of the elevator in the open small room. The experience was very unique. Apparently there is a Vine Fairy integrated into the entire city hall, controls everything in this building. Although this world has no electricity or mechanization, it does have magic. The smile gradually brightened on his face. Bane, who was following him, also had bright eyes at this moment. My lord, this is wonderful. This kind of building is only heard in legends, but now, they have it too. And they are still alive, ha ha ha, who can compare with them? The pride in my heart is filled to the brim. Lear nodded with satisfaction. He would no longer have to live in a tent in the future. Bane, please help me design my room. Separate the office area and living area. What furniture is needed for the Vine Fairy to weave directly? At the same time, various departments will be placed in the city hall, and they will all work here in the future. The completion of the city hall means that the city of Welu has finally laid its foundation and the development of the territory has entered a new stage. This is a new beginning and a milestone. Bane was also excited. Yes, sir. Lear looked at the Vine Fairy and said softly. We will continue to build other buildings. Thank you for your hard work. The Vine Fairy was quite impatient. This is what we should do, Father God. Serving God Father is their ultimate dream, and it is also the mark left in their blood. Moreover, building this building also gave them a big improvement. Lear seemed to have thought of something, and turned around to look around. He didn't see the window as he expected, and the surroundings were also a little dark, because it was too tight. There was no ventilation and the room was quite stuffy. August is the hottest time of the year. The temperature in the swamp is not too high, but it is a bit uncomfortable to stay there for a long time. While thinking, he said slowly. Open some vents around it to let in the wind from outside and make it cooler inside. The Vine Fairy responded immediately. There was movement all around, and the vines on the wall squirmed. Obviously nothing had changed, but there was a bit more cool wind in the air. Lear smiled happily. This feedback speed is incredible. No wonder the elves in the legend like to use plants to make various buildings. The leading Vine Fairy seemed to have thought of something and said hesitantly. Father God, if you want to feel cooler, maybe it's better to do this. Lear became interested. Talk about it. The growth of vines requires a lot of energy. Not only starlight, but also sunlight and heat can be absorbed. If the heat is absorbed, the surrounding area will be cooler. Lear's eyes lit up. Can it also be used for biological refrigeration? You try it. As the voice fell, the surrounding vines emitted little bits of starlight, and the surrounding magic swarmed into the vines. Along with this, the magic power became much thinner, and the heat in the air was eliminated at the same time, and the surrounding area was filled with coolness. Lear's mood became quite wonderful. This is simply a fantasy world version of air conditioning. Okay. Is it expensive to maintain refrigeration for a long time? It's not big, but it can make the vines stronger. The leading Vine Fairy was full of joy. As long as you're not angry. Angry? What's there to be angry about? Seeing his doubts, this little cutie immediately explained. Many plants need the sun. If we monopolize it, the surrounding plants will gradually die. This is also the reason why we didn't absorb much sunlight before. If the surrounding plants die, we will become very dangerous. We will be too conspicuous and easily discovered by the enemy. Lear then understood. Don't worry, there aren't any plants around, just leave some space on the side of the swamp tree man. Yes, Father God. Next, Lear, whose smile never faded, discussed with Bane and began to decorate the room. The office area, living area, and sleeping room all need different things. but with the Vine Fairy here, if you need anything, these little guys who have been upgraded to level 8 can control the vines to grow immediately." By noon, the office area had desks, chairs, cabinets and other necessary furniture, all woven with vines. "It already looks a bit like it, after some busy work." Lear sat on the wicker chair and stretched out comfortably. Then he seemed to have thought of something, and asked someone to call Granny Greengrass, who was still busy at the fishtail grass. Not long after, these old women with long reed hair arrived. God the Father. After saluting, they looked lovingly at the vine fairies flying around them. "These little cuties also love clinging to Grandma Greengrass." Lear chuckled and motioned to the magnificent building, asking directly. "The city hall has been built, can you give it some inspiration? That this building made of vines is too large, and it is hard to say whether it can be given spirituality." Granny Greengrass turned her head and looked at it for a few times, then said immediately, "Father God, these vines come from the same roots. After being fused together, they have become a plant and have a weak spirituality. With just a little guidance, you can gain spiritual wisdom that is no weaker than that of a baby." Lear's eyes lit up. "That's the best thing. If the city hall can gain wisdom, then there will be no need for the Vine Fairy to station people every day in the future. A building with wisdom, tsk. It's exciting to think about." Granny Greengrass immediately started to act, emitting a faint light of green grass and pouring into the surrounding vines. The next moment, the vines seemed to come alive and began to squirm. At the same time, the magic power around the territory began to roll, swarming in like being swallowed by a black hole, and was all poured into the city hall. Lear could clearly feel that the vines under his feet began to undergo some subtle changes. As if coming to life, the vines began to sway gently like the tentacles of an octopus. Then a feeling of joy spread out, in everyone's minds. A child's giggle was clearly heard echoing at this moment, so crisp, touching, and joyful. The light on Granny Greengrass gradually dissipated, a smile appeared on her face, and her wrinkles became more wrinkled. There was a bit of joy in his tone. "Father God. Success. Already possessing spirituality, this kind of enlightenment is very difficult." Lear was in a good mood. Opening the properties panel again, new changes appeared in the city hall after the enlightenment. The level has been upgraded to 2 stars, and there are 2 more characteristics. Wisdom. It has a certain amount of wisdom, can understand commands, and can freely control vines. Heating and cooling adjustment. Has the unique ability to adjust the heating and cooling to keep the city hall at the optimum temperature. So comfortable. Look at the Vine Fairy beside you. You come and teach it its basic operations. You won't need to stay here anymore in the future. I have more important tasks for you. The Vine Fairy should be happy. The city hall was nurtured by them little by little. Just like their own children, they are the happiest when they gain wisdom. At this moment, immediately turned into little stars and started communicating with the city hall. When Lear saw it, he was inexplicably touched. "You may not believe it, but my city hall is alive and has wisdom. In the future, if you continue to cultivate it, it won't be a problem to get up and watch the play of Swamp Banshee one day, or sneak out to play when you have nothing to do." "Did you see the city hall? I want to go do something." "I saw it. I'm fishing in the fish pond over there." Chapter 93. A new round of intelligence update, 5,000 words. You are listening at novelfull.audio. It seems that Lear has become a habit to leave in the morning and return in the evening. When he returned to the city of Wei Lu, it was completely dark. Bane, who had been waiting for a long time, heard the noise and immediately strode forward to greet him. He bowed respectfully with his right hand on his chest. "Good night, sir." After the salute, the swamp hero looked at the 30 fry people following him with some curiosity, quite surprised. There are still humans in this wilderness. Lear saw his gaze and said slowly, "These are fry people, and they will be members of my city of Wei Lu in the future. They are proficient in forging and have extraordinary abilities. You are responsible for arranging them. I also brought back a large number of forging tools this time. Tonight, I will give priority to letting the Vine Fairy build the blacksmith shop and put it into use as soon as possible." Bane's hand trembled, his eyes full of disbelief, and he lost his voice. "Fry people cursed by the god of forging?" As natural craftsmen, the name of Fry people is well known among the swamp people and is widely spread. Once, because of peeping at the extraordinary forging technique, the god of forging was angered. This kind of deed is too legendary, and the extraordinary forging technique that the other party peeped at has always been talked about. Yes, sir, I will arrange it immediately. With these Fry people, the weapon forging of the territory is not a problem at all, although they are natural craftsmen, they are not as good as the race cursed by God. Lear nodded and looked at Bryn. Follow Bane, all your work in the future will be arranged by him. Yes. These strong Fry people went down with a bit of trepidation, following Bane. He looked around curiously. After entering the city of Wei Lu, he saw it more clearly. This territory is obviously newly built, and there is only one building in the central area around it, but why is this building so magnificent and gorgeous? Under the starlight, the city hall woven with starry vines emits countless streams of light, which contrasts with the starry sky. In the dark night, lighting up the surroundings, there is an indescribable shocking beauty. Even if there is only one fully built building in the territory, it has caused a severe impact on them. Bane saw their eyes and said proudly. This is the city hall, and it is also the first building of our Wei Lu city. Do you know how long it took to build it? The Fry people were stunned and said cautiously. Half a year. Bane laughed. Half a year? No, 20 days. His eyes became extremely hot. We arrived at the swamp 20 days ago, and there were only weeds here at that time. You can become a member of Wei Lu City, which is definitely the favor of the goddess. In the next 20 days, you will come here again, and everything will be beyond your imagination. This huge building with a height of more than 20 meters and an area of hundreds of meters in diameter was built in just 20 days. All the Fry people found it unbelievable. Looking at Bane's proud eyes, I felt a little confused. Some didn't want to believe it, but it seemed that there was no need for the other party to deceive them. In the strange atmosphere, Bane took them to the residential area, where more than a dozen houses had taken root and sprouted. The vine fairy was like a light bulb, emitting a unique silver light, guiding the starlight to continuously cultivate vines. After the level was upgraded, the attributes of these unique lives in all aspects were improved, and the speed of cultivating star vines had been greatly increased. The surrounding Fry people could clearly see that the vines were growing upwards at a speed visible to the naked eye. By the early morning, these houses might be able to grow. After a little calculation, my heart trembled. At this speed, it is really possible to build that magnificent building within 20 days. They looked at each other and felt that they had underestimated this territory. The houses are still under construction. You can rest in this area for now. There is a public toilet over there. There is a water source here. There should be a house for you tomorrow. The blacksmith shop will work overtime tonight. Tomorrow morning, we can start smelting iron. Bane didn't say much. After a brief explanation, he went down to do his own thing. He had too many things to do in a day and had no time to talk nonsense. 30 Fry people were left standing stupidly on the grass. No one understood how complicated their mood was at the moment. Lear didn't pay much attention to the Fry people. After asking people to unload the iron ore and the corresponding forging tools next to the unbuilt blacksmith shop, he took the bubble beast to send the corpse to the area where the small lizards were kept. Select 10 wetland lizard warriors and let them undergo the second round of cold-blooded cavalry transformation. After Hags fed them with the mysterious lizard inscription, the selected small lizards began to devour them crazily. Soon the second team of cold-blooded cavalry will be born. While thinking, Lear suddenly thought of the scarlet rotten meat land in his hand. Today, he had planned to place it when hunting rotten centaurs to absorb some blood and flesh, but placing the scarlet carrion land would make a lot of noise and easily wake up the enemy, so he gave up after a brief attempt. Although the scarlet carrion land could give him a home advantage, it was obviously more suitable for positional warfare. Raids were not very effective. After thinking about it, he simply went directly to the vicinity of the pig farm and placed the scarlet carrion land. This dangerous land with a radius of 300 meters immediately merged into the earth. Standing outside and looking out, I saw black weeds everywhere. Only when you step into it can you see the scarlet earth and the dark hair growing from the ground. Entering it, Lear immediately felt that his strength had soared a lot. The recovery speed of magic power is also greatly increased. With every move he made, everyone around him was responding. At the same time, it was like having a god's perspective, allowing me to observe everything in this terrifying place. With a thought, the dark Red flesh and blood earth in front of him suddenly squirmed together, a cage made of flesh and blood suddenly formed on the ground. If there was any life here, it would be directly imprisoned. The cage is connected to the ground. If you want to break through, you must consume all the energy of the entire Scarlet Carrion Land, a cage of flesh and blood, a skill that comes with the Crimson Carrion Land. I wonder if we can imprison that level 16 flying dragon. Lear smacked the taste and felt it for a while before leaving. The wetland lizard warriors stationed at the pig farm were called and the area was classified as a restricted area, prohibiting outsiders from entering. It can also be regarded as leaving a backup for the pig farm. If you encounter any enemies, you can go there first to avoid them. What's more important is that when you slaughter the three-tailed pig in the future, you can go to the Scarlet Carrion Land to slaughter it. As long as it can continue to devour flesh and blood, it will continue to become stronger. This is a treasure that can grow. Does this count as setting up another slaughterhouse? Lear was a little funny. In addition, there was another skill in the Scarlet Carrion Land that made him quite curious: evil place. The evil power is abundant and can attract powerful evil beings. The opponent has a chance to become a garrison and be loyal to the Lord of the Scarlet Carrion Land. This feature can only take effect if it is placed outside, but it will not have this effect if it is carried on the body. I wonder if feeding this evil land in the future will attract some powerful evil beings to settle in. Bone dragons, fallen angels, devil princes, just 30 or 50 of these. After finishing his work here, Lear returned to his territory without running around much and informed Bane of the land of Scarlet Carrion. Let the swamp hero take care of the rest. After making arrangements, he returned to the city hall, took the smart biological elevator and returned to his room. After washing, I lay comfortably on the bed. At this moment, the cool breeze blew, making him feel extremely comfortable. The city hall is still cooling, it can automatically cool and heat, and it doesn't use electricity. Who can explain it? Lear felt a little amused. After lying on the bed for a while, my mind began to empty out, and I silently pondered the next direction of development. At present, territory construction has begun to enter a new stage, and the next step is to build urgently needed buildings. There is no need to worry about this with the Vine Fairy. In terms of planting and breeding, we are already on the right track and all we need to do is proceed step by step. In terms of army training, enough flesh and blood is needed, which requires more hunting. Everything is going in the planned direction. In terms of external exploration, there are still several hidden dangers. The first is the Lord of Stink and Flies, the demigod who already hates him to the core. Now the two sides have become mortal enemies, and the other side may bite him back at any time, so he must be prepared. It is best to have the means to counter the opponent, but this is not easy. Demigods are not just cats and dogs. Secondly, the valley where the Dark Naga is located needs to be explored. There is a ray of divinity in it that can strengthen the Flesh Slayer, the most powerful ace in the hand. This is 4-star level information. I wanted to explore it before, but I encountered a fishy stench and a sacrifice by a worshipper of the Lord of Flies, so I was forced to interrupt. In the valley of the Dark Naga, there is still a Cyclops. This is the key necessary to open the ancient ruins discovered by the Half-Murloc. There are 5-star level treasures inside. Never give up. Now that that's done, we can start conquering Dark Naga. In addition, a deeper hidden danger is that on October 14th, the Swamp Authority will appear, which will attract level 16 flying dragons. He had already felt how strong the life of level 16 was on the first day he entered the swamp. To face the threat of this terrible thing, the pressure is not ordinary, but there is still more than a month to go, and the information is still being updated, and maybe there will be a turn for the better. In summary, there are many hidden worries in the near future, but the gains during this period have also given him a certain degree of confidence to deal with these threats. His growth rate is far beyond the imagination of ordinary people. The night fell silent, and the busy territory gradually fell into sleep. Lear thought about it late into the night. The hands passed 0 and time quietly entered the 25th. At this moment, the intelligence system in his mind refreshed a prompt. The intelligence system has been cooled down and the intelligence can be refreshed. Do you want to refresh it? Lear perked up and looked expectant. It's finally here. Confirm immediately. 5 new pieces of information slowly refreshed in his mind. 1. At noon on the 27th, a group of one-horned bison will migrate past 10 kilometers west of 1 star. 2. The growth of blue heart mud fruit requires sufficient sunlight. Insufficient sunlight will reduce the yield. 3. The blood of the Fry people cursed by God hides shackles that can only be broken by the power of the Godhead. Releasing the power in their blood can greatly increase their potential. 2 stars. 4. A group of night elves being hunted by the wild blood bandits will pass through the sludge swamp on the 29th and pass through the city of Dew. 2 stars. 5. The queen bee of the swamp has been injured in the origin of her soul and cannot be cured. She is gradually dying. She can be placed in the land of scarlet carrion and transformed into a semi-undead life, the scarlet queen bee. 3 stars. Looking at the completion of the information refresh, Lear's eyes became excited. Every time the information is refreshed, it is like a lottery, giving him a different experience. Read from the beginning, the first piece of information, cattle passing by. There is nothing to say about this. Just arrange people to hunt them in advance, whether it is slaughtered or used as a labor tool, it is a good choice. The value of 1 star also means that the number of these cattle may not be large. The second one is about the blue heart mud fruit, also worth 1 star, just let Bane tell him later. The third one made him feel more alert, worth 2 stars, the blood shackles in Frey's body. I didn't expect that the curse of the god of forging was hidden in their blood. The god of forging was also cruel. Unlocking his shackles can also get a wave of enhancement. This is very interesting, he likes this kind of thing. Go tomorrow. Lear looked at the fourth one happily, worth 2 stars. Elves have always been high-level life in the main plane of Nor, with long lifespans and powerful strength. They are natural archers and mages. Night elves are a branch of elves, and they like darkness and fighting, which is completely different from peaceful elves, but they are equally powerful. Unexpectedly, there would be a night elf path, and interestingly, they were hunted by wild blood bandits. He thought of all kinds of things in his mind, and he had to make some preparations. He gathered his thoughts and looked at the last piece of information, which was also the only 3-star information. Lear frowned slightly. No wonder the queen of the swamp bee has not awakened for so many days. The price paid for hunting the queen of the mosquito is too tragic. Fortunately, the scarlet carrion land was obtained, giving the other party an extra way to go. But can the original strength be retained after being transformed into a half-undead? Lear shook his head. If he does not transform, he can only watch the other party die, and there is no choice, but he was still relieved in his heart. It was not a big deal to keep looking at the half-dead queen of the swamp bee. It was considered to have solved his problem. In general, the value of this intelligence is not high, much worse than the previous 2 times, but it is quite practical. If used well, the benefits that can be harvested are definitely not small. While thinking, he fell asleep. The next morning, Lear left the city hall and immediately called Bane. Blue heart mud fruit needs sufficient sunlight to grow. Lack of sunlight will affect its growth. You should plant them in open areas. There are not many blue heart mud fruits in hand at present, and they can only be used as seeds for cultivation in the early stage. After the second wave of farming and harvesting, the scale can be developed and it will take 2 or 3 months to really provide food for the residents and the army. Bane was stunned when he heard this, and immediately agreed. Yesterday he planned to find a place around the territory to plant it for easy care. If so, he must find a new location. Where are those Fry people? They are all in the blacksmith shop. The Vine Fairy worked together last night and built a blacksmith shop. Enough to accommodate 100 people. Bane's tone was very excited. Having a construction expert like the Vine Fairy is simply the dream of all planners. Whatever you want, the other party can make it immediately, which is amazing. The experience is full. Lear also became curious and went there with Bane immediately. The territory is so small, and it only takes a few steps to get there. Looking up, a 2-story vine house appeared in front of him. The height reached 8 meters, which was quite eye-catching. A yard was surrounded by vine fences outside, separating the inside and the outside. Lear stepped into the archway. He turned his head and looked around. The construction of the blacksmith shop was much simpler than that of the town hall. The walls were all woven with single-layer vines. No wonder it was built so quickly. The house was oval in shape, with a diameter of about 30 meters and an area of more than 700 square meters. It was very spacious. The first floor was 4 meters high, and there were 2 spiral staircases on the edge leading to the second floor. At this moment, the Fry people were busy carrying ore and furnaces for smelting steel in the house. Bane didn't care much, and let them arrange it by themselves. which was more in line with their usage habits. Seeing Lear coming, the busy crowd immediately stopped and saluted with their chests in a respectful manner. "Good day, Lord." Many people have adjusted their mentality. Regardless of what will happen in 5 years, the moment they came to this territory, they have become a member here, sharing life and death. The strength of the territory is the guarantee of their safety, and the weapons they forge are the necessary conditions for a strong army. Working for the territory is also for their own safety. Lear nodded and looked at the tallest and bearded leader of the free people, Bryn. "Since you have joined my city of Wei Lu and work for me, no matter what your choices are in the future, you are all my people now. Although you haven't made any achievements yet, I still decided to reward you with a generous gift. However, if I reward you without any achievements, it will inevitably break the rules. In the future, you will have to work harder to repay this reward." When the people in the room heard this, curiosity appeared in their eyes. The Lord is going to reward them. Or a generous gift. I can't imagine what I can be rewarded with. Then they saw Bryn step forward and come to Lear. At his command, he knelt on one knee. In doubt, Lear slowly put his hand on Bryn's head. The next moment, a sacred and inviolable breath, as majestic as a mountain and as majestic as the sea, surged out. It made all of them feel that their souls were trembling and in fear. "This is I." In the midst of fear, suddenly heard a click. The sound of glass breaking sounded. At this moment, he seemed to have broken some shackles. Then Bryn's breath suddenly surged, and an indescribable rich blood energy gushed out. When everyone in the room was in panic, they heard an incredible and shocking voice. "Lord, you broke the curse of the god of forging in our bodies. Goddess, this. His eyes turned red as he spoke, and tears flowed uncontrollably, like a child who was wronged outside and vented after seeing his parents. Dozens of fry people were stunned at first, and then exploded. Their hearts became extremely excited in an instant, and their bodies were trembling uncontrollably. The curse of God can be broken. The suffering that they, the fry people, have endured for countless years. Can they finally be redeemed? Walala. That everyone knelt down on the ground in unison, and put their heads on the ground in the most humble manner. "Great and kind Lord, we are willing to be loyal to you with our lives and souls, and beg you to save our fate." At this moment, breathing became cautious and fearful, for fear that because of their disrespect, they would anger the majestic existence that dominated their fate in front of them. Lear looked down at the kneeling crowd with a subtle look. It's nothing more than everyone wanting to climb up and become the superior at the top of the pyramid. Because, at this moment, his thought can determine the fate and life and death of these people. Authority, in front of the kneeling crowd, seems to have been demonstrated most clearly. Chapter 94, A Small Prophet, Terrifying Dark Naga. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Lear removed the shackles from the bodies of the fry people one by one. For these lives cursed by the god of forging, the second talent appeared in the racial talent column. Fry bloodline has a unique knowledge inheritance system. As they age, they gradually gain the knowledge engraved in their bloodline by their ancestors. After they reach transcendence, they can also integrate the knowledge into their bloodline and pass it on. At the same time, the potential panel that was not displayed before was also revealed. Their potential reached 3 stars. Seeing this, Lear's mood instantly became quite happy. His eyes stopped on the racial talent of the fry bloodline again. This talent is nothing special at first glance, but you can feel its horror and fear after careful consideration. No wonder the other party is so famous. As they age, they gradually gain the inherited knowledge of their ancestors. Over time, this is the best knowledge of the entire race. In this world, knowledge is the most precious wealth, which is often monopolized by aristocratic sections. It is very difficult for ordinary people to obtain knowledge. Many precious knowledge also disappears due to wars, natural disasters, and other reasons due to the closed inheritance. He has only heard of the knowledge inheritance of the entire tribe in the dragon. This means that as long as the tribe is not destroyed, the inheritance will never be cut off. No matter how many fry people are left, they can still obtain the valuable experience passed down by their ancestors, and when they become strong, they can also pass on the knowledge to their bloodline and improve the previous knowledge. When other races are facing the threat of knowledge gap at any time, they have evolved abnormal means. No wonder they were cursed by the god of forging. An entire tribe has been madly studying a skill for tens of millions of years, and even the most advanced skills will be studied thoroughly. If there are a few more evil geniuses, it may not be impossible for the Fry people to take the position of the god of forging. However, the good news is, now this Fry with a complete inheritance is his. Now, I will serve him in the future. The corners of his mouth are raised high, and he is in a very happy mood, but the most surprising thing is the Fry people themselves. The shackles have been removed, which means that there is nothing that can restrict them anymore. The great Fry people will re-enter the stage of history. Lear looked at the ecstatic crowd, coughed lightly, and waited for everyone to calm down and listen carefully before speaking slowly. The shackles in your body have been untied by me, and the Fry people will regain their freedom. But you should know who set this shackle, and how much it will cost me to do this. Speaking of this, the smiles on the faces of the Fry people also subsided, and the eyes looking at him were full of gratitude and respect. Lear's voice gradually became serious. Since you understand the value of this reward, you should understand that you are not worthy of this reward now. Next, let me see your talent and hard work. I hope to see one day you can hold your chest high and tell me that you deserve today's reward, that he said, pointing to the cold-blooded cavalry who happened to be patrolling from the door. Bryn, take your companions and research the armor and attack weapons suitable for the cold-blooded cavalry. This is your first mission. Don't let me down. Bryn heard the words and immediately straightened his chest and responded with a firm look. Lord, the Fry people will complete the mission with their lives. Wherever your eyes go, that's where our blades are. That the shackles in their bodies have been untied, which means that these almost extinct races have regained the hope of survival. This kindness, no matter how you sing praises, is not too much. Although they had only joined the City of Wisdom before, now, even if they were asked to leave, they would never step out of this territory. From the moment the shackles in their bodies were untied, their lives no longer belonged to them, and they could only repay with their souls. Lear nodded, and without saying much, he asked the cold-blooded cavalry at the door to come in and cooperate with their research. If they can wear heavy armor and cooperate with the impact of the swift lizard, their combat effectiveness will definitely be improved by several levels. Heavy cavalry can occupy a place at any time. Bane, who witnessed all this from behind, looked at Lear with fanatical worship. Even the curse of God was lifted. What a means! That's God. He knew that the Lord must have a brilliant origin. At this moment, someone told him that Lear was a god, and he dared to believe it without reservation. Looking at Lear's back as he left, Bane turned his head and took a deep look at everyone in the room. This is a group of lucky guys. And he was also looking forward to the power that the unrestrained Fry people would show. After leaving the blacksmith shop, Lear came to the swamp tree man and took out the swamp queen bee. At this moment, the life breath of this giant queen bee, which was more than half a meter long, had already weakened. Some of its limbs even showed slight decay, emitting a faint smell of food corruption. It can be clearly felt that the other party is dying. Like a flower that gradually withers after blooming, Lear's eyes were a little subtle. After getting the swamp queen bee, she fell into a deep sleep after only experiencing a battle to hunt the mosquito queen. Its true power was not tapped. Fortunately, after hunting down the mosquito queen, the army of swamp wasps was maintained, so it was not a loss. He did not hesitate and took the queen of the swamp bee away. He came to the scarlet carrion land next to the pig farm. When he stepped into this land of flesh and blood, he immediately felt a faint blood-colored energy surging from all around and drilling into the queen of the swamp bee. It seemed to be decomposing its body. The scarlet carrion land had sensed that it was dying. The only way to deal with dying life was to devour it completely. Lear raised his eyebrows slightly, and with a thought, he stopped the outflow of blood-colored energy around him. But at this moment, a new message quietly appeared in his mind. That if you need to decompose the body, you can let these forces erode. If you want to transform it into an undead life, you can control the power yourself. Lear seemed to understand. Is this the hidden characteristic of the scarlet carrion land? This is convenient. Without hesitation, he directly mobilized the majestic blood-colored power in the scarlet carrion land to cover the queen of the swamp bee. Under the erosion of the fierce blood-colored power, the appearance of the queen of the swamp bee began to be corroded, gradually revealing large pieces of bones. The flesh and blood began to hollow out. The sleeping swamp queen bee seemed to feel something, and uttered a slight groan of pain, but still did not wake up. The blood-colored Energy gradually penetrated deeper, and large patches of corruption appeared on her body. The breath of life began to decline rapidly, and her body was filled with the dying aura, like an old man who was dying. But after the death aura reached a certain limit, a new change quietly occurred. The majestic apricot aura suddenly began to gather towards the heart of the swamp queen bee. Gradually formed a vortex of energy like a scarlet eye. A few minutes later, all the aura on her body completely disappeared. In front of him, there was only a lifeless corpse. If it weren't for the subtle changes that seemed to be happening in her body, Lear would not dare to conclude whether the swamp queen bee was really dead. The whole process lasted for a full half an hour. When the power of devouring scarlet finally reached a certain limit, the swamp queen bee, who was full of breath, suddenly burst out with a majestic energy. It was like a wave of air, surging towards the surroundings. At the same time, the corrupted areas began to grow flesh and blood again, but the flesh and blood that grew out was no longer ordinary flesh and blood, but a dark red color like the coagulated blood, emitting bursts of death. It gave people a seductive and terrifying feeling. The moment the body was completely healed, buzzing, the thin wings suddenly spread out and took off violently. The air made a harsh noise. Lear looked at it intently, and finally saw the attributes of the opponent at this moment. Scarlet Queen Bee, half undead life, hero unit, level 13, level increased by 1 additional level, potential, 3 stars. Undead power, 14,000, racial talent, the queen bee can reproduce and reproduce the 9th level semi-undead soldier scarlet wasp, with a maximum reproduction number of 50,000. After the death of the scarlet wasp, it can immediately consume the power of the undead to hatch, and each scarlet wasp consumes 10 points of undead power. Hero talent, half-dead life, corroded by the breath of the dead, gaining the ability to control the power of the dead, and can devour the dead to gain the power of death. A parasite in the Scarlet Carrion Land can use the power of the Scarlet Carrion Land to restore itself and reproduce the bee colony, but as a parasite, it cannot leave the Scarlet Carrion Land for more than 3 days. Skill, control the bee colony, 3 stars, within a radius of 2,000 meters with itself as the center, can directly control the bee colony. Death Swarm, 3 stars, allows the bee colony to attack with the power of the dead, which can corrode the enemy and damage its soul. Self-destructing blood bee, 3 stars, control the wasp to self-destruct, causing huge damage to the enemy, and also with bee venom and corrosive damage. Evaluation, a unique half-undead life, she still maintains the ability to reproduce. 3-star potential, the level has exceeded the limit of 12 and reached level 13. Judging from the skills alone, the queen bee's single combat power is not strong, and basically controls the bee colony to fight, but after combining the talent, this control of the bee colony becomes very scary. It can directly consume the power of the dead to directly corrupt the wasps to attack, and it can also make the wasps explode and cause corrosive damage. Lear suddenly thought, isn't this an aircraft carrier? Carrying a huge biological attack group, the scarlet wasps in front are constantly attacking, and he only needs to corrupt the back. This attack method is very suitable for the swarm. The only limitation may be the hero talent of the Scarlet Carrion Land parasite. You can't leave this flesh and blood land for more than 3 days. But what you get in return is also very considerable. You can directly mobilize the power of the Scarlet Carrion Land to corrupt the wasps, and this limitation is not a big deal. The Scarlet Carrion Land can be moved, it's not a dead land. Thinking of this, I feel much better. At this moment, the Scarlet Queen Bee slowly flapped its wings and approached Lear. Master. A mental force surged out and communicated with him directly in his mind. The Scarlet Queen Bee who has completed the transformation is more domineering and ferocious than before. The black and yellow lines add a large area of blood spots, and the scarlet eyes look like they have just emerged from a sea of blood and corpses. It gives people a strong visual impact. The wings are thin, but as sharp as a blade, and can easily tear steel. Compared with before, the Scarlet Queen Bee's belly is several times larger, making it easier to lay eggs. Obviously after the transformation, the Scarlet Queen's focus is slightly different. However, if level 9 Scarlet Hornets can be mass-produced and used as an attack method, there is no need for it to take the field in person. Just relax and lay eggs like crazy in the back. Lear nodded with satisfaction. This wave of conversion will make a small profit. There are still a lot of mire wasps left in the territory. Can they all be transformed into scarlet wasps? That the Scarlet Queen responded immediately in the affirmative. Of course it's possible. Lear smiled happily. The Meyer Hornet is a level 5 unit. It can be directly upgraded to level 9, which is definitely a huge enhancement. There was no ambiguity at the moment, and she directly asked the Scarlet Queen to summon the Scarlet Hornets. The Scarlet Queen opened her mouth slightly and let out a harsh hissing sound. For a moment, buzzing. There was a harsh sound in the sky. The next moment, countless wasps flapped their wings and came, instantly covering the light and making the surrounding area dim. After these wasps flew into the land of Scarlet Carrion, several of them circled and slowly fell to the ground. The Scarlet Queen didn't hesitate, and her body emitted a bloody light, which directly enveloped the Meyer Hornet. Just like the transformation of a queen bee, the flesh and blood melted immediately, revealing dark white bones, and then grew and recovered again. Gradually, the flesh and blood became full. At the same time, the Scarlet Carrion land began to emit ferocious energy, all of which poured into these wasps. Just a few minutes later, the first scarlet wasp opened its eyes, and the next moment there was a buzzing sound. Countless scarlet wasps with dark red markings on their bodies flapped their wings and took off, adding a touch of color to the sky. The scene looked quite spectacular. When I opened the panel, I saw that the levels of the Scarlet Hornets had all been upgraded to level 9. Although he is still a weak assassin, his attack power has been greatly improved. Lear laughed and was in a good mood. This is called promotion. After enjoying the sight of the flying bees, his attention returned to the land of Scarlet Carrion. He could clearly feel that even if tens of thousands of scarlet wasps were cultivated, the energy contained in the Scarlet Carrion land was still very strong. I really don't know how many lives this guy, the Lord of Stink and Flies, has killed, but now it's easier for him. After recovering his mind, Lear did not stay long and waved for the queen bee and all the scarlet wasps to follow him and leave. The queen bee, a powerful killer, has awakened, and the bee swarm has also received a huge improvement. Today, we can go and find out the details of the Dark Naga. It would be a pity that such a good thing that he had longed for a long time was not in his hands. This thing is destined to him. Return to the territory and immediately gather the army. It's still the old rule. Bring 4 squadrons of wetland lizardmen warriors, and 2.5 squadrons stay behind. Bubble Beast and Swamp Banshee accompanied the army. The strength of the Scarlet Hornet has been greatly improved, and the Queen can quickly produce replenishing quantities, making the last trace of worry in his heart disappear. The army was assembled and set off directly. A few Delsa people with black feathers who knew the Dark Naga Valley led the way and headed straight to the south. These hardworking and timid Delsa people have brought plenty of vitality to the city of Welu these days, and they are involved in almost all work. It's very easy to use. After the south side has been cleaned up several times, there is basically no threat. The march was very fast, and before noon, the Delsa people who led the way stopped and reported to Lear that the destination had been reached. He immediately became energetic, followed the other party's instructions, came to a higher area and looked forward. This area is a standard swamp terrain, surrounded by dull muddy pools, with vines everywhere, lush but low vegetation, and a few sparse large trees growing in the distance. The site can be seen very far. The direction pointed by the Delsa people was a clearly raised hill, which was shrouded in thick black fog and could not be seen clearly. The hills stretch for several kilometers, and although they are only 30 to 50 meters high, they are already quite conspicuous in the swamp. Lord, this valley is where the Dark Naga is. Where the big tree is the entrance. Lear's eyes were fixed on a lonely big tree. After pondering for a moment, he waved the other person to go to the back of the team, and then immediately gave the order. Queen Bee, please ask your subordinates to investigate first. The biggest problem at the moment is that his knowledge of the Dark Naga is limited to words. The other party is very strong, controls divinity, has a lot of them, and even enslaved the Cyclops. More specific details are unknown. Now the main thing is to find out the opponent's intelligence. The Scarlet Queen responded immediately. The next moment, more than a dozen scarlet wasps flapped their wings and flew out with a buzzing sound, directly entered the valley shrouded in darkness. But the moment she flew into the valley, the Scarlet Queen bespoke. Master, these scarlet hornets were killed. Killed in action. Just in the blink of an eye. Did the other party install a high-voltage power grid outside? Lear raised his eyebrows and immediately felt a little troubled. Those who had received a ray of divine life seemed to be more powerful than he expected. Is it possible that we can only enter from the front? The sacrifice of the Scarlet Hornet seemed to have finally opened up something. When Lear stared at the black mist, a new attribute panel quietly appeared in his mind. Silent black fog, level, special, features, can weaken the attributes of those who enter the black fog by 60%, evaluation, don't step into it. Silent black fog. Lear's pupils shrank sharply. These black fogs actually have such terrible attributes. Weakened by 60%, what's the difference between that and being disabled? Fortunately, there was no impulse. At this moment, rumbled up the dark valley in the distance trembled. The next moment, a terrible life appeared from the darkness, more than 6 meters tall. A huge eye occupied 1/3 of the face, and there was a faint blood in the darkness. The body was full of strength, as if it was cast with steel. The bronze skin was full of wrinkles, like the bark of a century-old tree. The body exuded a ferocious and tyrannical aura, as if it wanted to choose someone to eat. Ordinary people couldn't even think of running away in front of it. It was too terrible. Cyclops. The Cyclops who entered the valley came out. Lear immediately became alert, but what surprised him was that as the Cyclops left the valley, he saw a thin chain tied around its neck, extending into the black fog. Is this a dog chain? Are these dark Nagas going too far to raise such a ferocious dog? In a moment, there was movement in the black fog again, and a life with a terrible breath came out of the black fog. There were exactly 2 teams. Its lower body was a snake body, and its upper body was a human body, with 4 strong and powerful arms. Its hair was not ordinary long hair, but a bunch of wriggling little snakes, which made people's scalps numb. Its body was nearly 3 meters tall, strong and ferocious. It was wearing thick dark full-body armor, and all 4 arms were holding slender and sharp swords. Dark Naga. The first impression they gave people was that they were extremely difficult to mess with. The chain of the Cyclops was controlled by a dark Naga. It was the first time that Lear saw this kind of life, and his eyes were a little solemn. He sensed a strong sense of danger from the other party. These lives are definitely not to be trifled with. When he looked at them intently, his attribute panel immediately appeared in his mind. Dark Naga, level, 12, potential, 4 stars. The potential of the 2 teams of Dark Nagas has reached the shocking 4 stars. The level is also as high as level 12. The inner restlessness was instantly extinguished. This valley must not be tough. Didn't the half-fishman say before that these Dark Nagas are not that strong? All level 12, the pinnacle of high-level warriors, you tell me they are not strong. Even the most elite army of Lauren City, the top city guarding the northern wilderness, is no more than this. Fortunately, there was no toughness. At this moment, the 2 teams of Dark Nagas took the Cyclops and went to the distance. It seemed that they were going to do something. Seeing this, Lear's heart moved slightly. Follow. Chapter 95 Enslaving Giants. You are listening at novelfull.audio. With the Scarlet Wasps, it is not difficult to track the enemy. The unique speed advantage of flying life can even allow them to stop and advance on the road that the enemy must pass and wait for them to pass. With spies monitoring the whole process, Lear easily kept a sufficient distance to follow. Soon, the Dark Nagas drove the Cyclops to walk more than 10 kilometers. Sensing that they were gradually walking towards the outside of the swamp, Lear's eyes narrowed slightly, looking at the Scarlet Queen Bee. Are there any Dark Nagas following us? Master, everything is safe. With more than 50,000 bee colonies as spies, everything around is clearly visible. Lear's face became serious. Ladina, you take the lead, and the bee colony cooperates. That the number of Dark Nagas is not large, but the quality is abnormally high. In addition to the Dark Nagas, the Cyclops has also reached level 13. The power contained in the huge body can easily crush the wetland lizardman warriors, which is very fierce. The order was given, and the headless flesh-and-blood butcher exuded a fierce killing intent, and rushed out like lightning. The terrifying aura was like a revived monster from ancient times, violent and crazy. Wherever he passed, everything was smashed. Those Dark Nagas suddenly woke up, and their eyes looked behind them. The moment they saw the flesh-and-blood butcher, they immediately adjusted their positions and formed a complete formation. The headless flesh-and-blood butcher increased his speed, grasped the axe condensed by flesh and blood in his hand, and rushed up. in a flash, the two sides collided with each other. The sharp sword of the dark Naga in the front suddenly swung. Whoosh! The air made a sharp whistle, and it pierced into the body of the flesh and blood butcher first. But this headless life did not stop at all, and violently swung the axe against the opponent's sword. The dark Naga's face changed, and he suddenly turned sideways to avoid it. The flesh and blood butcher had arrived beside him, and his right hand suddenly pressed down on the opponent's shoulder. The huge force suddenly stopped his body. Whoosh! Puffed! The battle axe in his right hand chopped directly on his neck, and blood exploded instantly. He raised his foot violently, and bang! Hit his abdomen fiercely. His stomach was directly sunken, and his back was bulging high, as if hit by a shell. His body flew backwards and hit 7 or 8 meters away. Puff! Blood mixed with internal organs spurted wildly in an instant. The breath of life dissipated into nothingness at this moment. The brutal posture made Lear's heart tremble fiercely behind him. Too fierce. Too fierce. This is what he calls fighting. The flesh and blood slaughterer rushed into the dark Naga alone, fighting with a sword, facing these high-level enemies. At this moment, the power of this divine life was reflected. Not only did he not fall into a disadvantage, but he suppressed these level 12 lives alone. Where the battle axe passed, blood plasma burst and flesh and blood flew, like a mad heavy rhino. No one could stop his charge. Originally, he planned to let the Scarlet Wasp cooperate in the attack, but the flesh slaughterer alone rushed those dark Nagas to pieces and made them defeated. The dark Nagas did not resist, but their attacks, whether piercing the heart or cutting the spine, could not cause any substantial damage to the flesh slaughterer. Instead, he was killed by the opponent every time. A body without fatal weaknesses is simply a hedgehog with nowhere to bite. Lear's eyes became hot. Before, when dealing with the rotten centaur, the flesh slaughterer showed unparalleled power and could use the low level of the enemy as an excuse, but now facing the 12th level dark Naga, he still has almost invincible battlefield dominance. This is called divine life. Enough. Soon, there were only the last 5 dark Nagas left on the battlefield. They finally couldn't resist, and one of them pulled the chain in his hand violently. Roar! The Cyclops, whose neck was tied, suddenly turned around. The terrifying one-eyed giant stared at the battlefield, and the sky seemed to darken. The 6-meter-tall height gave people a very shocking visual impact. At this moment, there was no wisdom in its eyes, only tyranny and murderous intent. Kill it! The angry high-level Naga language resounded through the sky. The Cyclops roared wildly at this moment. He rushed directly towards the flesh slayer. Bang! 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 His legs stepped on the ground, causing tremors. It was like a mountain collapse, and the earth collapsed. The breath of the flesh slayer also suddenly burst out, like ignited gasoline, burning fiercely. Without the slightest fear, he strode forward. At this moment, the void in front of him rippled like water waves. His figure disappeared directly from sight. The violently rushing Cyclops clenched his fists and slammed the ground where he was. Bang! The mud splashed, and a huge pit appeared on the ground, but the enemy had already disappeared. The dark Naga behind him had a drastic change of expression. Watch out for your head! The Cyclops looked up subconsciously. The space above his head was rippling, and a headless figure with suture scars all over his body jumped down from the sky with his hands tightly holding a battle axe above his head. At such a close distance, he had no time to react, and he subconsciously tilted his neck. Puffed. The battle axe hit his shoulder hard. The bones were broken, and the flesh and blood exploded directly. The horrible pain made this 6-meter-tall terrible life roar hysterically, but the huge force impacted, and the body flipped uncontrollably to the other side, and collapsed to the ground. He struggled to get up, but the blood gushed out, and the severe pain made it impossible to get up. Just one blow, the terrible Cyclops lost its combat effectiveness. Void channel, for stars, can open a void channel, allowing oneself to instantly shuttle through the void and reach the target. The special power obtained by swallowing the eyeball of the Lord of Fowl and Flies was revealed in the most intuitive way at this moment. After chopping down the Cyclops, the flesh and blood slaughterer did not pause at all, and rushed towards the last 5 dark Nagas with a battle axe. At this moment, the dark Naga unexpectedly let out a long howl, and then the 5 people fled separately. The flesh and blood slaughterer caught up with the nearest one, swung the battle axe, and chopped it down fiercely, and the dark Naga held the knife hard. He did not attack, but simply defended. The two sides fought for more than 10 rounds. The flesh slaughterer, who didn't care about his injuries at all, exchanged his injuries for his life and killed him again, but at the same time, this short time has allowed other dark Nagas to run far away. If he chased him again, he could only catch up with one at most. The flesh slaughterer was furious. When the dark Nagas saw that they were far away from the flesh slaughterer, they just breathed a sigh of relief, and then they heard a buzzing sound of wings flapping in the sky. He looked up subconsciously, and his heart was broken. He saw a group of fist-sized wasps flying in the sky, with a wingspan of more than 30 centimeters, a sharp steel needle on the tail, and blood-colored mottled bodies. The moment these insects appeared in his sight, he still had some luck in his heart, but when they got close, they swooped down like arrows, and his face suddenly changed drastically, twisting his snake body and rushing wildly. But how can ground life compete with flying life in speed? Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The scarlet wasp suddenly accelerated. Hearing the intense buzzing sound behind his ears, Dark Naga turned around unwillingly and stopped, holding the slender and sharp swords with 4 arms and swinging violently. Whoosh. Clang puff. With extremely precise slashing, dozens of scarlet wasps failed to cross the curtain formed by the blades and were all killed on the spot. Juice splashed. Superb fighting skills are the killer of Dark Naga. No matter how many skills you have, it is useless to encounter a flesh and blood butcher without vital points, and one force can break all methods. But at this moment, facing the flying wasps one by one, that is a living target. Dark Naga's heart rose a little confident. What about the swarm of insects? He can fight all day. At this moment, a close wasp pounced in front of him, and before entering the attack range, his body swelled like a balloon. Dark Naga's heart skipped a beat when he saw this, but it was too late to react. Bang. After the wasp reached the limit, it exploded directly. The venom on his body covered the surrounding area of several meters. The long sword can kill the enemy, but it can't stop the air waves caused by the explosion. Caught off guard, the Dark Naga only felt a burning pain on the exposed skin and face, but before he could get angry, he saw the second swollen wasp in his peripheral vision. No! He roared with extreme unwillingness, but the voice was suddenly interrupted. Bang bang bang. The sound of explosions drowned the Dark Naga. When the scene was quiet, there was only a corpse on the ground that was still twitching slightly, with a large area of skin burned by the venom, which looked extremely creepy. These escaped Dark Naga were all destroyed in less than 5 minutes, with the ability to self-destruct. The Scarlet Wasp, which was upgraded to level 9, had a significant increase in destructive power. When Lear arrived at the battlefield, the only one left on the field was the Cyclops, who was chopped on the shoulder by the flesh slaughterer. Wailing, he struggled to get up, but the flesh slaughterer suppressed him the whole time, and kicked him when he tried to get up. Without weapons, the opponent could hardly pose any threat. Seeing Lear approaching, the flesh slaughterer immediately said, "Master. His soul is controlled by black magic." The voice of this headless life was dull and ethereal, and very recognizable. Lear raised his eyebrows slightly. Black magic. Looking at the huge body of the Cyclops, he became interested. This is the key to open the ancient ruins. Is there a way to clear it? Just destroy it with a more powerful force. Lear nodded, and his mind moved. The swamp godhead in his body exuded a sacred and inviolable majestic power, directly covered the Cyclops, eroded into his mind. The next moment, he could clearly sense that there was an evil dark energy entrenched in his mind. After the power of the godhead arrived, the dark energy roared and gathered fiercely, trying to expel it. But how can dark energy without roots compete with the power of the godhead? Like ice and snow melted by the sun, the Cyclops' mind returned to normal in an instant. The Cyclops, who was still struggling frantically, slowly calmed down, and his violent and crazy eyes gradually regained clarity. He covered his shoulder with one hand and supported his back with the other hand, frowning and looking around. "What's wrong with me?" A voice as deep as thunder sounded. His face changed as he spoke, revealing a look of resentment. "Those damn Dark Nagas. They deceived me. Damn it, damn it." After roaring, he looked around again, seeing the corpse of the Dark Naga and the wetland lizard warriors waiting in full formation. I immediately understood something. Dear human lords, I am not attacking you on my own initiative. I was deceived by those Dark Nagas. They imprison my soul and can directly control my body. Lear's eyes moved slightly. Cyclops, there is no way to tell whether your words are true or false. What is certain now is that you and the Dark Naga attacked us together, but were ultimately defeated and became our prisoners. You should know what it means to be a prisoner in the wilderness. What is it? He is a slave whose life and death are controlled by others. This is the consequence of defeat. The wilderness is a naked predator of the jungle, and the weak should be enslaved and slaughtered. The Cyclops fell silent. Finally, he bit the bullet and said, "Dear human lord, I don't know how to get my life back." In this situation, there was no room for resistance at all, and he was so seriously injured. Working for you. Lear's eyes were deep. Not everyone can join our Welu city. Do you know the specific situation of those dark Nagas? With this tone, it seemed like this human didn't intend to kill him. The Cyclops immediately perked up. In the wilderness, survival always comes first. Holding his shoulders, suppressing the pain, he said in a deep voice. Those dark Nagas have 6 squadrons, and their levels have reached level 12. The most powerful Naga god of war is as high as level 14, which is extremely terrifying. His angry tone suddenly carried a hint of unconcealable fear. These dark Nagas come from the abyss, and they seem to be adhering to the will of a certain Grand Duke of the Abyss. Not long after I entered it, my soul was eroded by an irresistible force. Those Nagas do not have this kind of power, and they only have the terrifying existence of the abyss. Lear's pupils shrank sharply. From the abyss. And it has 6 squadrons, and the highest level Naga war god is level 14. Behind the other party, there is even a Grand Duke of the Abyss standing. This series of information immediately made him feel numb. No wonder he controls a ray of divinity. This power is too terrifying. If he had rushed forward at that time, the consequences would have been completely unimaginable. I really don't know how those half-murlocs got the news. The opponent only has 2 squadrons, with the highest level being level 9. Or is it a smoke bomb deliberately released by the Dark Naga? So what are they planning? He immediately gave up the idea of attacking the opponent. This force hidden in the black mist cannot be eaten now. Seeing that Lear didn't speak for a long time, Cyclops was a little worried that he would regret it, so he added. Those dark Nagas seem to be looking for something, but they have never found it. But they kept mentioning one word over and over again, God-killing heart. God-killing heart. Lear narrowed his eyes slightly. What is the God-killing heart? I don't know. When I was imprisoned, I could only hear some faint sounds. This word was repeated a lot. The name sounds extremely extraordinary. It is definitely not simple to allow these dark Nagas to search for it like this, not to mention, the Archduke of the Abyss is also involved. Every Duke of the Abyss is a genuine evil god. Although the rules of the main plane have always excluded the entry of god-level powers, these terrifying beings will always try their best to influence the main plane. Lear kept this incident in mind. What else do you know? No more. I was imprisoned too quickly and know very little. The Cyclops was also a little frustrated. No one can understand the feeling of being imprisoned for no reason and living in darkness. Lear nodded slowly. The other party didn't tell lies. We are going to hunt those dark Nagas. Are you willing to be the vanguard? The Cyclops' eyes suddenly lit up. Sir, I do. But after finishing speaking, there was some hesitation. But, behind those dark Nagas is the Duke of the Abyss. Lear's tone was calm. Grand Duke Abyss, so what? How do you think the dark power in your mind was expelled? The moment the words fell, the breath surged out, majestic and sacred. The Cyclops sensed this, his heart trembled, and he cried out in surprise. My God! Feeling the coercion coming from the blood, he resisted the severe pain and stood up, kneeling in front of Lear in the most humble posture. His head was firmly pressed against the ground. Chapter 96. A few days later, the strength of the 14th level creature. 5,700 words. You are listening at novelfull.audio. As a life form unique to the swamp, the Cyclops has the breath of the swamp god imprinted in his soul. Although he is not as good as the vine fairy and the green grass granny, who are the lives created by the swamp god, he is also the most loyal follower of the swamp god. Every time the swamp god revives and rebuilds the sect and the army, there must be the Cyclops, and these behemoths have countless legends in the swamp. After subduing the Cyclops, Lear did not plan to stay too long and immediately prepared to evacuate. The information of the Cyclops was somewhat explosive, and the Grand Duke of the Abyss hidden behind the Dark Naga was even more of a heavy pressure. It is not suitable to have a head-on conflict with the Dark Naga now. At this moment, Haggis approached with a Dark Naga whose belly was half opened by an axe and whose internal organs were flowing out. "Master, he is still alive." Lear looked at the other party's miserable appearance and raised his eyebrows slightly. "He is still alive even after being like this?" Concentrating his mind and sensing, there is indeed a very weak breath of life, but not much, and it will be cold in 2 minutes later. The mind moved slightly, the power surged in his body, and the energy of the magnificent life enveloped the other party. Swamp gift. The life breath of the Dark Naga stabilized a little bit instantly. Lear did not stop, and cast the swamp gift one after another. The other party gradually stabilized from the state of dying. Seeing this, Hags rudely stuffed the internal organs back into its body, and its wounds began to heal in a weak state. However, it was too seriously injured, and it was still unclear whether it could survive. Seeing this, Lear immediately thought of the Scarlet Queen Bee. "I wonder if I can use the Scarlet Carrion Land to transform the other party." He immediately became interested. After confirming that there were no other survivors, he did not stay for long, and took the army around for a circle and returned to the territory. Bane, who was a little worried, immediately relaxed after seeing Lear, but then his eyes were attracted by the fierce and terrifying figure behind him. Gulp swallowed a mouthful of saliva and said tremblingly, "Sir, is this a Cyclops?" With a height of 6 meters, ordinary people are like children who have just learned to crawl in front of it. They need to look up high to see its face clearly. The oppressive feeling brought by that size makes it difficult for people to breathe. Lear nodded. Although the goal today was not completed, there was an extra gain of the Cyclops. This giant will become a member of the City of Wisdom. He will stay in the territory to recuperate for the next few days. If you need to do anything, just command him to do it. The Cyclops nodded repeatedly. "That's right. If you need me to do anything, the direct order is the supreme will of my God." Bane's heart trembled, and he looked at Lear again. For so long, he has already felt Lear's extraordinariness, especially the majestic and sacred pressure that cannot be violated and touched. Every time it makes him almost crazy, although Lear has never admitted it. He has already regarded him as the Son of God or the incarnation of the gods walking on earth, but Lear didn't make it public, and he didn't say much. So he could only keep his emotions in his chest. Lear asked Bane to arrange the Cyclops, and he took the severely injured Dark Naga to the Scarlet Rotten Flesh Land. After placing it on the Flesh and Blood Land, his eyes were slightly fixed. Scarlet power surged out from the earth and instantly engulfed the Dark Naga. The seriously injured Naga couldn't resist at all. With a low groan, the flesh and blood seemed to be splashed with sulfuric acid, and began to corrode with a sizzle, revealing the white bones. The breath began to decline at a speed visible to the naked eye, like a burnt candle. Soon it reached the critical point. The breath suddenly extinguished, but the next second after it died completely, the scarlet energy suddenly gathered in its heart. Boom! The breath of life was like ignited gasoline, and it suddenly surged. The flesh and blood that had just melted began to grow again, and it became bloody. The dark breath gradually turned into the breath of the dead. When all the flesh and blood grew, the Dark Naga suddenly opened his eyes, a pair of blood-red eyes filled with cold silence, without any breath of life. Looking directly at it, it was as if looking at a walking corpse. Slowly standing up, the snake body stood upright on the ground, and the snake tail arched to support the upper body. The 3-meter height gave people a sense of uprightness and majesty. And the breath on the body was gray and palpitating. It was like a corpse buried in a grave for a long time just crawled out. The gray snake skin spots on the body were smeared with large patches of blood. It gave people a great visual impact. From the appearance alone, there was a kind of hideous and terrible taboo creature. Lear's eyes became extremely hot at this moment, and the corners of his mouth were raised high. Success! It really turned into a life similar to the Scarlet Queen Bee. Scarlet Carrion Land, awesome. This success not only means that he can take this Naga, but also means that similar operations can be repeated in the future. Forcefully suppressing the ups and downs in his heart, he looked at it intently, and the attribute panel appeared in his mind: corrupted Naga, level 12, talent, 4 stars, racial talent, superb combat skills, born with master-level combat skills, and a keen sense of combat, dead soul power, 3,000 points, skill, soul severing, 3 stars, attach the power of the dead to the weapon, directly cut off the enemy's soul. Unyielding, 3 stars, the time affected by control skills is reduced by 80%, super agility, 3 stars, the body has super agility, super strength, 3 stars, the body contains fierce power, beyond the limit of ordinary life, tough body, 3 stars, endless endurance, never exhausted, evaluation, a semi-undead life with super combat talent. After reading its attributes, Lear was amazed. What a fierce warrior! The power of the cold-blooded cavalry is the direct superposition of attributes, but the attributes of the corrupted Naga are not so direct, all of which increase its own strength, but with the unique racial talent, its combat effectiveness is not worse than that of the cold-blooded cavalry. The two are different types of soldiers. The cold-blooded cavalry is a heavy-armored warrior who prefers to charge head-on. The corrupted Naga is a skill-based warrior. After the opponent's formation is torn apart, it is time for them to start slaughtering, very suitable for fighting with the cold-blooded cavalry. The birth of the corrupted Naga directly made Lear's interest in the Dark Naga soar. If he could capture it and turn all the Dark Nagas into corrupted Nagas, the power in his hands would usher in a new wave of enhancement. I have to declare that, woman, you have successfully attracted my attention. He took the corrupted Naga back to the territory and let it guard the city hall with the flesh slaughterer, and then he fell asleep. The undead do not need to rest. The next day, August 26th, Lear quietly led the army out hunting, and let the Cyclops recover in the territory. It was a day without much ups and downs. On the morning of the 27th, he led people to capture the bison herd that the intelligence suggested, a full 150 heads. The shoulder height of these bison reached 2.5 meters, each of them was big and strong, and weighed more than 3 tons. The 2 hook-like horns seemed to be made of iron, reflecting the metallic luster. More than a dozen wetland lizardmen who cooperated in the capture were knocked over, but in the end, they were still forced back to their territory. The bison in this world are not only bigger than the cows on Earth, but also fiercer and several times stronger. Lear tried to let them pull sleds, and they rushed through the fields like a small whirlwind. The Delsa people who were driving the cows were pulled by the cows and ran wildly, like kites, and their feathers could take off if they were longer. An acre of land was plowed in a short while, and the chaotic scene like a battle made Lear laugh and cry. In the end, 3 sleds were added to slow down the speed of the bison, but the efficiency was even better. Lear sighed after seeing the back. No wonder no one in this world studies any machinery. The small tillers on Earth are completely inferior to this bison, and it doesn't need much maintenance. Just take it outside to feed grass, and it can give birth to calves if it is fed well. With this energy, why not raise a few more cows? Why try to climb the technology? After these 150 vigorous living forces joined, the speed of various constructions in Waylu's city has reached a new level, especially in the matter of reclaiming farmland, pulling the plow and running wildly on the wasteland swamp. It won't take long for a flat area to appear. In addition, it is also very useful for pulling goods and moving things. It's just that the cows are a bit stubborn. But after Lear put on the nose rings, the cow's temper was also controlled. Interestingly, there is no such thing as nose rings in this world. After this thing was made, the Delsa people who were leading the bison to run around in the wild were amazed. For a long time in the future, taking bison to reclaim wasteland will become a popular job. It's really worry-free. As long as you wave the whip, these guys can easily plow the fields. Even if you get familiar with some bison, you can sleep on their backs. The task is completed after waking up from a sleep. Who wouldn't be happy about such a good thing? But it is not without cost to drive these manic laborers. The consumption of food suddenly skyrocketed. However, at this time, the colorful moss showed its value. These plants can grow rapidly as long as there is fertilizer. With the supply of feces from 3-tailed pigs, bison, and thousands of people in the city of Waylu, they can get fresh moss every day. The 3-tailed pigs love to eat, and the bison also like this kind of plant with high energy. Seeing this, Lear directly ordered the construction of garbage treatment plants and wastewater treatment plants in advance. The main cleaning tool for these 2 buildings is colorful moss. After the garbage is classified, the colorful moss is directly spread. It will absorb all the nutrients and turn them into a pile of harmless slag in a short time. There are no chemical products in this world. Clothes are made of linen and cotton. They will rot in a short time if buried underground. They are also nutrients. It can be easily absorbed by the colorful moss. Sewage is even simpler. Several sewers were dug and vines were woven into water pipes to collect daily wastewater to the muddy ground covered with colorful moss. The sewage was purified before it flowed through. After such an operation, the domestic garbage and sewage of Wei Lu City not only did not pollute and have a great impact on the surrounding environment, instead, it continuously provided nutrients for the growth of colorful moss. The obtained colorful moss was used to feed bison and three-tailed pigs, forming a positive biological cycle. It truly achieved zero carbon emissions, and environmental protection organizations would cry when they saw it. On the 28th, the hunt continued. The dark Naga has stimulated him a little. These days, he plans to focus on strengthening the cold-blooded cavalry before talking about other things. With a gun in hand, he is not panicked. Without an army, he can't walk straight. The second cold-blooded cavalry cultivated a few days ago also joined the battle sequence today. At the same time, Lear used the hunting results of the previous 2 days to cultivate the third cold-blooded cavalry team. Today, his goal is to clean up the area 15 kilometers away from the east. As the city of Wei Lu grows, the area near the territory has been cleaned several times. Not to mention the wild monster strongholds. Even ordinary wild beasts are few and far between. The hunting area can only be extended outward. He started hunting when it was light, and returned to the territory only when the moon was high. The gathering place of monsters in the east is very dense. At the end of the day, the bubble beast was filled with 50 bubble corpses, enough to cultivate 2 teams of cold-blooded cavalry. In this way, the number of cold-blooded cavalry being cultivated has reached 3 teams, and 2 have joined the battle sequence. The strength is changing every day. After 3 busy days, the time came to the 29th. Today's time is quite critical. A group of night elves being hunted by the wild blood bandits will pass through the silt swamp and the city of Wei Lu on the 29th. 2 stars. Although the value of this information is not very high, there are 2 key points: night elves and wild blood bandits. Wild blood bandits are a group that wanders in the wilderness and makes a living by plundering. Barbarians are their main members, especially like to plunder human territories and caravans. Wherever they pass, there is always no grass. It is the Lord who established a territory in the wilderness, and it is a terrifying existence. According to incomplete statistics, 1/3 of the pioneering lords were killed by the wild blood bandits. The intelligence does not show the specific time, which means that danger may come at any time. The lion fights a rabbit with all its strength, and he does not want any accidents to happen at this time. The residents who entered the busy state did not pay attention to the waves of the outside world and completed their work seriously. Lear spread the scarlet wasps early, covering a 10-kilometer radius around. If there is any movement, he can receive the news immediately. Scarlet wasps are not big in size, resting in the grass and treetops. They are small targets and do not attract too much attention. They are excellent for monitoring. At noon, Lear, who was sitting next to the fish pond drinking tea and feeding fish, looked up and looked forward. The next moment, buzzing that the scarlet queen bee flapped its wings and flew over. "Master, the target is found," that he immediately perked up. "Finally here." "Which direction?" "Those night elves coming from the north have entered stealth mode and are using the shadows of plants to avoid tracking. From a normal perspective, the other party is completely invisible. Using shadows to sneak." Lear's eyes moved slightly. "How many are they?" "Currently, it is roughly estimated that there are less than 2 squadrons, and the specific number needs further confirmation." "Don't alert the enemy, let them come by themselves." "Yes." The Scarlet Queen Bee immediately gave orders. Then every few minutes, there will be news about where the other party has gone. The specific route was firmly under control. 1 hour later, a group of female night elves, who were lurking in the shadows and whose figures were completely invisible, quietly approached the city of Wispy. Pointed ears, high noses, translucent skin, and almost perfect appearance, with a kind of soul-stirring beauty, without any flaws. Wearing a black cloak, his eyes were dark and deep. each of them held a grey-brown hardwood longbow engraved with elven runes, and several quivers on his back, half of which had been shot empty. The leading night elf looked at the city of Wispy, looking at the city hall with some surprise. In the swamp, there is actually such a territory. Look at their buildings. They are all woven with vines, that the natural affinity with plants is the instinct of all elves. In their eyes, the vigorous vitality of the city hall is like a blazing fire in the dark night, so dazzling and eye-catching, an elf behind him said with some shock. Does the plant building of Lord Isani have spirituality? God bless you. This is incredible. That this made all the night elves widen their eyes and look at the city hall with great surprise. Spiritual plants almost do not exist in the underground world. That dark and barren land cannot grow such treasures. After confirming, everyone became agitated. Can Lord Isani take this building back underground? If we can get it, it won't take long before our strength will be greatly improved. Elf talent, close to plants, can use the life essence of plants to enhance their own strength. The legendary capital of the elves is completely composed of plants, and it is not just a legend. And not only that building, but other buildings in this territory are also composed of vines. The night elf became more and more excited. If we can occupy this territory, it won't take long before we can fight back underground. Take back our occupied land. All the night elves were inspired by this sentence, and their eyes were full of desire. Don't be reckless. The Lord who built this territory must be very strong. Don't underestimate him. The leading night elf, Isani, had a deep look in her eyes. My lord, we still have the heart of darkness. As long as we can activate that building with its power, it can be comparable to a level 14 creature. The night elf who spoke said unwillingly. No matter how powerful the enemy is, we can fight our way out. Those dirty barbarians behind us are all lambs to be slaughtered. But the night elf leader Isani was still a little hesitant, but in an instant, the companion behind her continued. We have no choice, my lord. Do you still expect to find a plant with more vitality than that building? Or are you fantasizing about going back underground? Do you think our current strength can take back the occupied land? How long do you think we can survive wandering on the surface? The cold words hit Isani's heart like a hammer, grit her teeth. If that's the case, let's give it a try. Her tone was a bit firm. Stay alert and sneak in through the weak point. After approaching the building, immediately activate it with the heart of darkness. The enemy's guards are only wetland lizardmen, so the danger is not great. As long as we can activate this building, we will not be afraid even if the enemy's army returns. Feeling the gushing breath of life, her eyes were extremely hot. Is there no crisis? No, she knew better than anyone the danger of venturing into an unfamiliar territory. It looks safe on the surface, but who knows what is hidden in the other party's territory. But is there any choice? Continue to exile in the wilderness, being chased like a dog by those dirty barbarians? How long can such a day last? The pride of the elves made her unable to tolerate this situation to continue. Even if she died, she couldn't be so embarrassed anymore. Lear, who was drinking tea, suddenly looked a little subtle. He couldn't understand what those night elves were doing. Why did they inexplicably start to sneak into the City of Wisdom? Fortunately, he had given instructions before, and there were not many residents in the territory. There was no need to worry about any major losses. Moreover, there was no wealth in the territory, and the precious treasures were hidden underground by the swamp tree people. What do these guys want to do? Unable to figure out the other party's purpose, Lear did not alert the enemy, and silently watched the dark moon elves use shadows to flexibly bypass the residents, approach the city hall, and then all went in. His face instantly became strange. This is even more outrageous than walking into a trap. How dare they enter the city hall? This brain is too good. At this moment, rumbled. Suddenly, a dull loud noise came from the ground. I saw that the city hall, which was rooted in the ground, had countless thick roots suddenly rising from the ground. Large cracks appeared around, and the soil splashed all over the sky. At the same time, a group of surprised voices resounded through the sky. Ha ha ha, we succeeded. Praise my God. The activated vine building actually reached the strength of level 14 life. Seeing this, Lear suddenly laughed with relief. Luckily, these guys are not crazy, but it seems like they are almost. They want to take away his city hall right under his nose, they treat him like a human being. Chapter 97 Fat meat delivered to your door, crunchy and delicious. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. After the city hall rose from the ground, a fierce aura surged up unscrupulously, like a giant dragon opening its eyes. It gave people a strong deterrent effect. The wetland lizard warriors behind him were full of vigilance and held the steel knife tightly in their hands. The muscles of the body have been stretched to the extreme, the 20-meter height of the city hall, coupled with countless dancing roots. The sense of oppression brought by this appearance is much more exaggerated than the 6-meter-high Cyclops. After the city hall came to life, it began to move forward, and the building complex was not far away. Lear couldn't bear it at this moment, so he strode forward and blocked the front of the city hall. Are you a little presumptuous? The next moment, a night elf holding a vine jumped out of the window of the city hall. Although his face was young, he had an extraordinary demeanor, and he was majestic and solemn. The aura of a superior was obvious. Lear's eyes were slightly condensed. Human, are you the master of this territory, holding great power, controlling the lives and deaths of countless people, and experiencing the blood and blood of the dead? The temperament he has cultivated is like a candle in the dark, extremely eye-catching. This building is of great use to us night elves. We need it. If you just get out of the way, we won't attack you. Just take it away. Lear was so angry that he laughed. So, you are so confident in robbing? If I don't attack you, you really give me face. Where do you get the confidence to sneak into my territory and want to kidnap my city hall? The eyes gradually became cold. You don't know how high the sky is. The ruthless reprimand made the night elves above annoyed. They are not the kind elves on the surface. Fighting and killing are also the love of the night. Human, I will only say my words once. Now, get out of here. The next moment, the city hall exuded a surging and majestic atmosphere. It was like a mountain falling down, and everyone's heart was pressed down by a huge rock. The night elves stored inside were all in high spirits at this moment. The strength of the 14th level creatures was terrifyingly high. A small human territory could be crushed with one hand. But then they were somewhat surprised to find that when the city hall rushed over, the human lord was still standing there without moving at all. Seeing this 14th level animated plant attacking, there was even a playful smile on the corner of his mouth. This damn bastard. How dare he despise them like this? Crush him. Driving the city hall to swing its roots to smash Lear. After the city hall rushed to Lear, it suddenly froze. Then, under the incredible gaze of the night elves, like a well-behaved kitten, it slowly crawled down and gently pressed against the ground, as if asking him to touch itself. Huh? The night elves were stunned. Those who have not seen it cannot imagine how shocking it is to see a 20-meter-high building with a diameter of hundreds of meters crawling towards a human. What are you doing? You are a spiritual being, activated by the heart of darkness, and an activated plant with a biological strength of level 14. How can you crawl so obediently in front of a human, grovel, and act like a spoiled child? Where is your dignity, your confidence, and your strength? Crush him for me, bastard. But no matter how the night elves in the city hall urged, the city hall was like nothing happened and could not stand up in front of Lear. It was not until Lear touched its vines that it stood up happily. You can feel its sincere joy. Imprison them. Lear's light words made all the night elves' faces change drastically. The next moment, more than a dozen night elves suddenly jumped out of the window of the city hall, but the next second, vines grew and stretched like octopus tentacles, tying them up in midair. Circle after circle, the night elves refused to admit defeat, roaring and attacking with the longbow arrows in their hands, trying to get the vines, but the vines, which were tougher than steel, were unscathed no matter how they exploded. Then the vines rolled up and pulled all the night elves back inside. This inexplicable digging behavior was destroyed even more nonsensically, from beginning to end. The night elves didn't understand why the plants they had activated didn't obey their orders. How could a human control their elves' plants? The battle subsided for a moment, and the Scarlet Queen Bee flapped its wings and approached quickly. Master, traces of the wild blood bandits were found in the outer area. They are running towards the city of Dew quickly. Lear, who was about to check his spoils, stopped. Are all the real masters here? How many? 3 squadrons, all around level 9. Lear was not vague when he heard this and ordered the army to gather. He was also very interested in those looters in the wilderness. To be so notorious, they must be quite rich, right? As for these night elves, they were locked up first, and they couldn't cause any trouble. The troops hidden in the surroundings gathered quietly, and Lear didn't bring more. He selected 2 squads of cold-blooded cavalry, plus hags and flesh slaughterers, and finally brought 30,000 scarlet wasps as a backup, set off immediately. The Scarlet Queen Bee and the Wetland Lizard Warrior stationed in the territory, prevent any changes. After the number of troops decreased, the speed of action increased suddenly, especially the cold-blooded cavalry, who were all cavalry, ran at a speed of more than 100 kilometers per hour, and were very fierce. Everywhere you look, it looks like it was hit by a rhinoceros, and there is only a mess. Lear also rode on a swift lizard. The owner of this swift lizard rode with another person. The structure of the swift lizard is very suitable for riding. There is an area on the back that is high in front and back and concave in the middle, and it is also in the shape of a bottle. Once you sit down, you will be stuck as long as you adjust your posture slightly, and it is a bit difficult to get out, but such a structure is very magical and does not affect flexibility, very suitable for riding and fighting. It was also the first time for Lear to ride a swift lizard. Looking at the 3-meter-high beast running wildly in the swamp, his mood was high. The wind whistled past his ears, the scenery retreated under his feet, and everything on the earth was trampled under his feet. As far as the eye can see, it is open and spacious, and everything has become shorter. This feeling is great. What surprised Lear was that the divine life of the flesh slaughterer actually caught up with the high-speed march. The other party caught up with the cold-blooded cavalry on foot. Exaggerated, he was also full of admiration in his heart. This high-level 13-level combat power has almost no shortcomings. At this moment, Lear's pride gradually rose in his heart. In the sky is the scarlet wasp, under the seat is the swift lizard, on the side is the cold-blooded cavalry, and behind is the flesh slaughterer. In less than a month, the strength in his hands is no longer what it used to be. Under the rapid progress, in just 10 minutes, the scarlet wasp in front sent a warning: the enemy is approaching. Soon, the notorious wilderness blood bandits in the wilderness, which are hated by countless pioneering lords, came into Lear's sight. The wilderness blood bandits are almost all made up of barbarians. These fierce lives are naked on the upper body, covered with thick black hair, like uncivilized savages. Their eyes are full of aggression. The body is covered with scars, which are traces left by plunder and battles. The muscles are like sculptures, full of a heart-throbbing sense of power. These barbarians are generally 2 meters tall. They hold various weapons in their hands, made of iron, bone, and stone, but the same thing is fierce. What is particularly eye-catching is that almost all of these wilderness blood bandits ride a unicorn. They look very wealthy. After seeing the wilderness blood bandits, Lear had no intention of stopping, but waved his hands fiercely. Smash them! That the cold tone resounded through the sky. He took the lead in leading the team to charge. When a nanny leads the charge, it means that there is no suspense in this battle. The next moment, all the cold-blooded cavalry simultaneously urged the swift and crazy lizards under their seats, and the fierce soldiers rushed across the short road like arrows from a string. They directly hit the wilderness blood bandits. After seeing the cold-blooded cavalry, these ferocious barbarians saw them coming straight at them before they could react. They hurried to meet the enemy. At the moment when the two sides collided, they immediately felt the ferocity of the cold-blooded cavalry. It was like a steel gun inserted into the army. Wherever they passed, both the unicorn and the wild blood bandits were smashed. Bones burst, flesh and blood exploded. Under the head-on collision, no one could stop it. The fierce posture made the wild blood bandits feel trembling, and they swung their weapons violently to fight back. But the wetland lizardman warrior riding behind the swift mad lizard condensed the power of the swift mad lizard. The steel knife swung. The wild blood bandits only felt a fierce force coming from their hands, and their tiger mouths were numb, and the weapon was cut off directly. Puff of fierce pain came from the front, and the flesh exploded directly. At the moment of the battle, they were torn apart by the terrifying force. These blood bandits who made countless people tremble could not stop the brutality of the cold-blooded cavalry. Like a sled passing through the border, the densely packed army formations were directly sifted. A terrible bloody road was left behind. After the charge, Lear's emotions were still high. Driving the swift lizard to go around a circle and launch a second round of charge charged and killed 5 times in a row. The number of wilderness blood bandits in the 3 squadrons dropped sharply to less than 100 people. 2/3 of them were killed. On the other hand, the cold-blooded cavalry only had some minor injuries, and they would be quickly healed by Lear. The huge gap between the two sides was intuitively displayed in a cruel way. Barbarians, level 9, potential 2 stars, talent, brutal plunder, morale increased by 50% when plundering, and all attributes increased by 20%. Evaluation: except for their own kind, they are extremely brutal and bloodthirsty to any life, and no moral law can restrain them. The evaluation of these races by the intelligence system determines that there is no value in conquering them. Lear waved his hand indifferently and continued to slaughter. These ferocious lives are really brave, and they will not retreat no matter how tragic it is, but courage sometimes cannot change anything. In the face of absolute strength, all this seems so pale and powerless. Soon, the last wild blood bandit was killed, with 2 high-level combat forces as the vanguard. The 2 teams of cold-blooded cavalry easily slaughtered the 3 squadrons of wild blood bandits. When high-level combat forces face lower-level enemies, the dominance of the battlefield is exaggerated. After Lear gradually calmed down on the field, he breathed a sigh of relief. It was the first time for him to rush to the front line in such a long time, and the steel knife in his hand was taken before he left. In this battle, he also killed 2 wilderness blood bandits with his own hands. That feeling was completely different from the healing of maintaining the defense line behind the battlefield. Wonderful and crazy, the war was over, and the battlefield began to be cleaned up. Hags miraculously found 2 survivors, but before Lear asked, the 2 barbarians who were still alive laughed grimly, and the blood in their bodies surged wildly, and blood spurted out of their mouths like fountains. They directly committed suicide with secret methods. Their ferocity made him frown slightly. These barbarians are really similar to the wetland lizardmen, with hard bones, but unfortunately, they didn't find too many valuable things on other corpses. After confirming that there was no extra game, the scarlet wasp that did not participate in the battle swooped down from the sky, lifted these corpses and returned directly to the territory. The flesh and blood of 3 squadrons, plus the hundreds of unicorns killed in battle, can cultivate several cold-blooded cavalry. The higher the level of life, the greater the energy contained in the flesh and blood, and the number of cold-blooded cavalry that can be cultivated will increase accordingly. In addition to the dead bodies, more than 200 living unicorns were obtained, although they were all ordinary inferior horses. The number was so large that just killing them for meat was a rich food, a small profit. Seeing this, Lear felt relieved a little, and did not stay any longer, and returned with the army. On the way, he felt the swift lizard under his seat, and his eyes were a little subtle. This mount is really good, it feels much better than walking every day before. It's a pity that he is not a wetland lizard man and can't cultivate his own swift lizard. It's not a good idea to always ride on other people. While thinking, he suddenly thought of the life he met before the swamp giant deer. Those majestic giant deer are also suitable as mounts. The heroic figure of the giant deer king is still in front of him. The first time I saw him, he was level 12. The last time I saw him, the giant horned deer king in the swamp was already level 13. But no matter how ferocious he was, could he be stronger than a divine life? He glanced at the flesh and blood butcher beside him. Perhaps he could try a new round of hunting. After trying the feeling of a mount, he couldn't stop. No wonder so many people like to ride horses. This thing is really cool. Back to the territory, Lear returned the swift lizard to the somewhat aggrieved wetland lizard warrior. In the battle just now, he and another person rode a swift lizard together, and some of his influence was exerted. He was immediately happy to get his pet. Lear couldn't help but smile when he saw this. After the swarm returned, it transported the corpse to the area for cultivating cold-blooded cavalry and continued to cultivate these high-level soldiers. The hunting in the past few days has made the cultivation of cold-blooded cavalry go smoothly. Perhaps it won't be long before a whole squadron can be assembled. At that time, hundreds of cold-blooded cavalrymen launched a charge at the same time, and the scene was absolutely shocking. The extra 200 unicorns were driven to the vicinity of the City of Wisdom and were temporarily guarded by the Delsa people. Bane was very happy to have obtained 150 bison before and now 200 horses. They are all living forces. After the spoils were dealt with, Lear came to the front of the city hall, which had been rerouted. With great interest, the night elves had obviously done something unspeakable just now to make the city hall alive. However, they never thought that they would have so many backups, so they made wedding clothes for him in vain. Looking up, although the appearance of this building has not changed much, it is still dotted with stars and colorful. But it no longer feels like a building, but a living life standing in front of him. This is an experience he has never had before, even after the green grass granny lit up his spirit. Let us go. Damn human, why can you command our animated plants? Cunning human, he deceived us, this is a trap. Curses interrupted Lear's thoughts. He sneered and stepped into the house. He immediately saw a scene that made him laugh and cry. One by one, the night elves with beautiful figures and almost perfect looks were tied to the wall of the city hall by vines, and the binding was very artistic. All parts of the body were tied up around, and the key parts of the chest were perfectly displayed. Looking around, the mountains were undulating and very eye-catching. Looking at the angry eyes of these night elves, Lear was a little funny. What have you done to my city hall? Even the legendary tortoise shell binding has been learned. Looking around the night elves with interest, is this considered fat meat delivered to the door? Opening its attribute panel with great interest, his eyes suddenly lit up. Night elf, level 9, potential, 3 stars, racial talent, natural archer, with the best archery skills in the underground world. Wow, 3-star potential. And this talent, isn't it a coincidence that the army of the City of Wisdom has always been a melee combination, and there is a great lack of ranged troops? This makes his fighting methods quite scarce, and he has always been mainly engaged in frontal combat. If all these night elves are enslaved, just thinking about it makes me feel very promising. Chapter 98: A Rich Harvest. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After reading the attributes of the night elves, Lear was quite moved. It must be said that the elves, a life form that is famous in the main plane, is not just because of their beauty. Their powerful strength is the foundation. The opponent's skills combined with talent can be described as fierce. If there are warriors in the front, not many, just a squadron, the wild blood bandits who hunted them before will be a living target. He took a deep breath, stared at the bound night elves, and said, slowly, a group of night elves, actually being hunted by the wild blood bandits. You are much weaker than the legend. I am a little disappointed. He waved his hand and the wetland lizardman warriors behind him threw a few heads over. The wild blood bandit's hideous head rolled under him. You are not worthy of the reputation of the elves. The night elves hung on the wall were ashamed and angry when they saw this. That's just because we don't have tree warriors. Human, you are insulting the great night elves. Humph, if they were in the underground world, these barbarians would be pigs. But no matter how hard they talked, their momentum was obviously reduced. No matter what the excuse was, it couldn't change the fact that they were being hunted, and the enemy who chased them like dogs, but was easily slaughtered by the other party, still made their pride in their hearts hit hard. Lear looked at the angry night elves calmly and fell into deep thought. If you want to enslave these arrogant lives, you need some means. His level has been stagnant since he devoured the residual soul of the half-fish god last time. In the swamp, the power of this land is always strengthening his body and soul. Although he can feel that his body is getting stronger every few days, this speed is a slow change. There is no way to enslave so many night elves. Seeing that he didn't speak, the air gradually became quiet. The leader of the night elves suddenly spoke. Respected human lord, may I know how you plan to deal with us? Lear looked up, stared at the other party, and said slowly. I haven't thought about it yet. Do you have any good ideas? This made all the night elves silent. So you want us to give you ideas? The night elf leader took a deep breath. Human lord, your territory seems to have been established not long ago. I have a set of 3-star weapons and armor forging secrets in my hands. I am willing to use this in exchange for our freedom. Lear felt a little familiar for some reason. It's time to buy your life with treasures again. It seems that it has happened several times. So, this world likes to do this. However, he seems to like it, looking at the other party with a playful look. Not enough. The night elf leader gritted his teeth. I can revive 20 tree men for you and transform them into tree men guardians who protect the territory. Is this a secret method? Yes, but only the blood of the night elves can revive tree men. Can the revived tree men be as strong as my city hall? You are joking. Your city hall can only have the strength of a 14th level creature after integrating the Heart of Darkness. The Heart of Darkness is a treasure dug out from the dark tree men who have survived for thousands of years. It is extremely precious and can greatly enhance the strength of revived plants. I only have this one. But we can still do it. Seeing that the night elf leader was still about to speak, Lear interrupted. No need to say more, you haven't realized your situation yet. There is no room for bargaining here. He didn't trust the night elves much. After a while, when the soul strength was enough, he would just enslave them directly. Won't all these treasures and secrets belong to him at that time? Now it is certain that a lot of money can be squeezed out of the other party, which is not bad. No nonsense on this, change the topic to ask. Where are you from? Where is the entrance to the underground world? The night elves felt a little humiliated, but had to grit their teeth to answer the question. There is a small hill about 100 kilometers north of the swamp. The cave at the bottom can enter the underground world. Why did you appear on the surface? This was like opening their scars, and they were breathing rapidly and furious. Those bastards of the Song clan attacked our territory and occupied our moon well. They fled to the surface as a last resort. If they had not been attacked by the enemy, how could they leave the underground world and become captives? The Song clan. It is a large clan with more than 5,000 night elves. They are famous in the Dark Mountains and are favored by the god of the night elves. We are not their opponents. The night elf leader was holding back his breath. The Dark Mountains. When he heard this word, Lear immediately thought of the monster he encountered on the first day of arriving in the mud swamp, the Skaven. The countless numbers left a deep impression on him. Do you know the Rat-men? The night elf leader came back to his senses and looked at him in surprise. You also know the Rat-men? Those filthy creatures occupy 1/3 of the Dark Mountains, and their number is too large to count. It is said that they are preparing to hunt the red dragon that is about to die of old age in the depths of the Dark Mountains. Speaking of this, his tone was somewhat complicated. Those Rat-men were so weak individually, but they were hunting red dragons. They were so powerful, but they became captives. Lear narrowed his eyes slightly, hunting old dead red dragons. He had heard this news when he interrogated Rat-men before. Unexpectedly, they confirmed each other, but it was too far away and had nothing to do with the City of Wisdom for the time being. Do you know what treasures are hidden in the underground world? Such as mineral veins, ancient ruins, etc. The survival competition pressure in the underground world is extremely high. What we know is occupied by others. If we want to get it, we can only snatch it from others. If the wilderness is the naked jungle rules, then the rules of the underground world are 10 times more bloody than the wilderness. A world without light breeds the most extreme darkness in this world. Lear was very curious about the dark land that was said to have rich treasures and countless ferocious races. But, this will have to wait until the later development before going to explore. After asking for a while, without getting more information, Lear did not stay any longer and turned away. Cleanly, looking at his back, all the night elves felt a strong sense of powerlessness. They were like meat on a chopping board at this moment, allowing people to cut and knead them. There was no room for resistance. The night elves were done. Lear looked at the sky at noon, and while thinking, he called the Scarlet Queen Bee. Let her go hunting with 30,000 scarlet wasps. The action has to be bigger. The development step by step may not be able to deal with the flying dragon in mid-October. Before, the Scarlet Queen Bee was still sleeping. Letting the scarlet wasps hunt alone would make it difficult to organize an effective attack when encountering a strong life, which would easily cause a lot of losses. Now that the Queen Bee is in command, hunting is no longer a problem. Lear was not satisfied, and ordered hags to go hunting with 2 teams of cold-blooded cavalry and 3 bubble beasts. The speed of the cold-blooded cavalry is not as fast as the scarlet wasp, but it is equally fierce. The general gathering place of wild monsters cannot withstand the impact of 2 teams of cold-blooded cavalry. Bubble Beast is responsible for carrying the corpses and fully cooperates. The second team sets off. At the same time, the territory also has 5 squadrons of wetland lizardmen warriors stationed. and the flesh slaughterer is in charge. In addition, the activated city hall, there is no need to worry about internal security issues. His main goal these days is to do everything possible to increase the number of cold-blooded cavalry. The pig farm is still breeding piglets. It is not time to exert force. If you want to obtain flesh and blood, you can only hunt outside. After the army went out, Lear continued to return to the fish pond to make tea. There was some emotion in his heart. After so much effort, it was finally not in vain. The power accumulated by the city of Microdu gave him the spare energy to operate on multiple lines. When he first arrived at the swamp at the beginning of the month, he dared not even think about it. Thinking about it, he saw the dragon blood-red fish happily eating fishtail grass in the water, and he felt better. Military progress was rapid, and production and construction were not lagging behind. Everything was developing steadily. That night, the army returned, and the Scarlet Queen Bee hunted thousands of corpses. The Scarlet Hornets carried the corpses back like drones. After the level was upgraded to level 9, the combat effectiveness of the Scarlet Hornets was improved by several levels. Moreover, the Scarlet Queen Bee could replenish the number immediately after consumption, and was not afraid of sacrifice at all. Coupled with the exploration efficiency of flying life, if it was not almost unable to carry it later, today's harvest would be even more abundant. Hags also brought back more than 300 corpses. All were placed in a small lizard area and began to cultivate cold-blooded cavalry. At this rate, it would not take long for a complete cold-blooded cavalry to be born. The next day, Lear sent the army out early in the morning and continued hunting. It is worth mentioning that the bubble beast that had produced babies before finally recovered its strength and began to join the battle sequence. The available bubble beasts in hand were restored to 26 at once. In the next few days, we still need to hunt intensively, so we are not in a hurry to let Bobo and other bubble beasts that have not given birth give birth, except for 2 bubble beasts left to maintain the operation of the territory. All others have joined the battle sequence. Scarlet Queen Bee brought 18 bubble beasts, and Haggis brought 6. The cold-blooded cavalry he had hunted and cultivated in the past 2 days have all completed their transformation today, and 3 new teams have joined the battle. The number of cold-blooded cavalry has reached 5 teams, and the combat effectiveness has been greatly improved. Lear did not participate in it, and handed the hunting task to 2 horses. He stayed in the territory and dealt with the backlog of government affairs with Bane. The territory is expanding rapidly, and all aspects of things need to be arranged. However, the administrative staff is obviously insufficient, and the various departments he asked Bane to set up before are still just a framework. It has not been put into actual operation. There are too few talents. The literacy rate of the swamp people is relatively high, but among the hundreds of people, only less than half can read, and only half of this half can handle official business. More than 20 people, the feathered Delsa people, are naturally timid and cowardly, illiterate, and can't do anything at all. In addition, the smart fry people went to the blacksmith shop and worked day and night to research suitable armor for the cold-blooded cavalry. They were not interested in government affairs at all. The wetland lizardmen were completely battle-minded. It was just funny to let them fight more fiercely and handle government affairs. The cavemen who were previously enslaved were born to be miners, the best among cattle and horses, and the ruled class. Overall, the scale of Walu's city has expanded, but the quality of its talents is unsatisfactory. Faced with this situation, Lear was also helpless. In the end, he simply captured the swamp banshee and captured him. These magical beings are much smarter than ordinary people. They have a complete knowledge system and handle government affairs in an orderly manner. However, the other party soon felt bored and boring about it. There was no emotional gain at all from dealing with government affairs, which was completely incomparable with drama. After the wise swamp banshee concluded, she immediately put forward a piece of advice: since you can't find suitable talents, why can't you train them yourself? This attracted Lear's attention. Look at the swamp banshee with a scrutinizing gaze. It was immediately decided to appoint them as chief cultural knowledge popularization officers, and they would conduct 2 hours of literacy popularization and knowledge transfer every day after dark. When other people serve as teachers, the residents of the territory may not be willing to learn, but the swamp banshee is different. The exaggerated popularity accumulated through dramas can make them extremely popular. Of course, the most important thing is their singing. It can make people fall into illusions, taste fear, ecstasy, and even death. It can be used both for fighting and for passing on knowledge. Lear implemented this decision that day, and when the sky was dark and he returned from the territorial gathering, he ordered the teaching to begin. As soon as the swamp banshee opened her mouth, the residents who were still a little restless were immediately attracted. I was mesmerized as I listened to the swamp banshee talk about basic knowledge, common language writing and spelling. The immersion is more amazing than the most serious students. At the end of the day's teaching, even the elderly with the worst receptive ability shouted excitedly that they had learned 50 common words. The teaching efficiency is simply exaggerated and amazing. Lear was very happy about this. With this efficiency, parents on Earth would be able to sell their houses and come here to give their children tutoring, immediately reward the other person with a night of drama. Then it was stipulated that every 3 days of imparting knowledge, they would be rewarded with a performance. This excited the swamp banshee. After the play, another class was held overnight, which made the residents of the territory say that they had grown brains, and the messy knowledge was deeply imprinted in their souls. When they got up the next day, they were surprised to find that they still remembered the knowledge firmly. People are running around telling each other, and you can see people writing on the ground everywhere, showing off their profound cultural heritage. Even when working, he had to squat on the ground with a proud smile and write a few words before he could continue working. This made the foreman very angry, and he imposed a strict rule that no writing was allowed during work. The swamp banshee has made progress, and the scarlet queen bee who returned from hunting at night has also gained a lot. The bubbleman's bubbles were filled with carcasses, and after a whole day of hunting, more than 3,000 were harvested. The Scarlet Queen flew directly out of the swamp and entered the wilderness to hunt. The ultra-high movement speed of flying lifeforms gives them a wider range of exploration. You can easily fly dozens of kilometers in less than half an hour. This makes their gains very exaggerated. Haggis on the other side also brought back 700 to 800 corpses. Today they encountered not many wild monster gathering places, but there were quite a few of them. In terms of the number of people, they had overfulfilled the task. Lear was delighted and continued to cultivate cold-blooded cavalry. Under the accumulation of massive corpses, the number of cold-blooded cavalry being promoted exceeded 6 squads. If they are all listed, the number of level 11 cavalry in hand will directly exceed that of a squadron. I feel very happy. This is how to cultivate an army. Late night came quickly, and in the early morning, the time hand crossed the 12 o'clock mark. And time passed quietly, arriving on August 30th. The last day of this month is also the time when the intelligence is refreshed again.